A hum, low, constant, rising from everywhere and nowhere at once. Not the chamber's resonant frequency. Selvin knew every vibration the Senate floor carried through his bones. This was new. Across the golden thread that bound him to Koth, he felt his anchors stiffen. 300 senators fell silent. Something, somewhere, was paying attention. If that sound just made you hold your breath, you're in the right place. Subscribe, and stay for what comes next. 14 hours earlier, the Twin Accord Senate had been debating water tariffs, and Selvin's biggest concern had been whether the session would break before the cafeteria ran out of cured kelp. The session had resumed its usual shape: trade disputes, border clarifications, the slow machinery of interstellar governance grinding forward one clause at a time. Selvin sat in the upper tier with Koth beside him, their shared neural link humming at its baseline, a faint golden warmth between their temples that most other species couldn't perceive and none could replicate. They were Cauldron. Two bodies, one cognition. Selvin spoke. Koth anchored. 43 years they had served together, first as junior delegates, then as full senators for the Accord's outer territories. In all that time, they had never once disagreed on a vote. The doors unsealed with a pressure hiss that cut across 3 active debates. A Corran officer stood in the entrance, exoskeletal plates still locked in transit configuration, the heavy armor segments clicking and resettling as the atmosphere adjusted around him. He carried a data tablet. Behind him, 2 Corran escorts flanked the doorway, their chest plates rattling in the involuntary way that meant elevated stress hormones. Whatever this was, it had scared them before they'd arrived. Senator Selvin. Senator Koth. The officer's voice was clipped, formal, stripped of any diplomatic warmth. Intelligence Directorate. We are invoking priority disclosure. Priority disclosure. Selvin had heard the term used exactly once in his career, during a classified briefing he'd been forbidden to discuss for 11 years. Koth's hand found the armrest, fingers tightening. Through the golden thread, Selvin felt the first cold pulse of his anchor's alarm. The officer placed the data tablet on the central dais and activated it. A holographic document materialized above the Senate floor, rotating slowly so every tier could read it. It was a tactical analysis, dense with fleet positions, sensor ranges, patrol frequencies, and jump corridor schedules. Every major species in the sector was represented. Every fleet mapped. Every weakness annotated with surgical precision. Written in a human script none of the translation systems had encountered before first contact. Dated 18 months before first contact. If you're still here, and that date means what you think it means, come back tomorrow. We'll be waiting. The Corran officer let the silence do its work. Then he said, this was recovered from a captured human navigational database during a routine border audit. The file was not hidden. It was not encrypted. It was sitting in a subfolder labeled Regional Overview. Regional Overview. As if the combined military assets of 9 spacefaring civilizations were a weather report. Selvin leaned forward. Through the thread, Koth fed him processing clarity, the way an anchor steadies a ship in rough current. Together they began reading the document line by line. The fleet compositions were accurate. The patrol gaps were accurate. The sensor blind spots were accurate. And together, for the first time in 43 years, they started arriving at different conclusions. And then the hum began. Not from the ventilation. Not from a neural frequency that linked every cauldron in the chamber. Something external, threading itself through the building's acoustics like it had always been there and only now chose to be heard. Koth's processing feed stuttered. For the first time in Selvin's memory, his anchor's data stream came through fractured, carrying 2 interpretations of the same input. The thread between them dimmed. Just slightly. Enough. The holographic display updated. The Corran officer had linked the document's fleet data to the Senate's tactical projectors. Human fleet positions populated the void region border, each vessel tagged with tonnage, armament class, and patrol rhythm. Selvin counted 12 ships. The display refreshed. 26. It refreshed again. 53. Those numbers are not errors, the Corran officer said. His chest plates had not stopped rattling since he'd entered the chamber. They were updating in real time when we captured the database. The humans were tracking their own deployments in our copy of their file. Then a second file opened beneath the first. An intercepted communication between two human vessels, flagged by current signals intelligence. A casual exchange. One human officer to another, referencing the current Emperor's flagship. Your Emperor's flagship was impressive. For a museum piece. Somewhere in the mid-tiers, a current diplomat stood. Sat back down. A transmission header appeared at the bottom of the display. Stamped with coordinates the Cauldron Senate recognized as their own deep space perimeter. Below it, one line of text from an unnamed human fleet commander. We were here before your sensors activated. Think about what that means. That hum. It was louder now. The Senate floor vibrated beneath 300 chairs. Koth's hand moved to the display controls without waiting for Selvin's agreement. That had never happened. But Koth was already pulling the document apart, isolating fleet registries, cross-referencing build dates. Two conclusions forming in a mind that was supposed to be one. The humans had found them through gravitational microlensing. The document's margin notes described it plainly. Stellar light bending around cloaked vessels, distortions too small for any known sensor array to flag, captured and catalogued by instruments the Cauldron hadn't known existed. They hadn't broken the stealth technology. They had simply watched the way starlight bent around it and drawn their own conclusions. Before the Cauldron had ever transmitted a signal. Before the Corran had detected a human ship. Before phase contact was a concept anyone in this chamber had considered possible. Koth isolated the final page. For the vessels listed did not exist. They matched designs still classified within the Cauldron Naval Development Bureau. Ships approved for construction but not yet built, hulls that existed only as engineering schematics behind 7 layers of encryption. The humans had written them into the document anyway. Selvin felt the thread dim to its lowest point in 43 years. Koth's feed ran parallel to his own now, not merged. 2 tracks, 2 interpretations. His anchor read it as a warning. We see everything, even your future, so choose carefully. Selvin believed it was something else entirely. An introduction. 6 months later, the Cauldron sent a single diplomatic vessel to the human border. 2 senators who, for the first time in their species' history, held differing positions on the same policy. On the table between delegations sat a copy of the tactical analysis, annotated now in 2 languages. The thread between Selvin and Koth still carried 2 tracks. It burned brighter than it ever had. If 2 minds can learn to hold different truths and still burn brighter for it, what would you have believed? Warning or introduction? Join us tomorrow. The next story is already waiting.